Democracy relies on trust. Can our democracy survive after Trump has broken our trust? Check this out. Leave your comments, ding the bell, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. But just to kick it all off, we need to rebuild trust in both democracy and our form of government, the American government. And to do so, there are two steps to doing this. The first has to do with holding seditious Republicans accountable, and I'll get to that in a minute. And the second has to do with restoring the protective functions, really, of government, which is the reason why we create governments. I mean, read the preamble to the Constitution. And so there are some very specific things in order to do these two things, to hold Republicans to account so that the next Republican president isn't even worse, and to restore Americans' faith and confidence in our government. I mean, you know, first of all, let's diagnose the problem here. The simple reason why 78% of Republicans, about 20% of independents, and around 10% of Democrats think Joe Biden didn't actually win the election, that, you know, Donald Trump had the election stolen from him, is because of trust. I mean, we are trained to trust our presidents. You know, I mean, it's a very straightforward thing. We have always trusted our presidents. It hasn't always worked out, right? Lyndon Johnson lied us into the war in Vietnam. George W. Bush lied us into the war in Iraq. McKinley lied us into the Spanish-American War. Yeah, we know that. And those are viewed as betrayals. Ronald Reagan lied to us about Iran-Contra. Bill Clinton lied to us about having sex with Monica Lewinsky. Yeah, sometimes Republicans lie. But broadly speaking, when something comes out of the White House, we believe that it's true. We think that we can trust it. And there's a reason for this. It is that trust is basic to life. We can't survive without trust. Science, religion, and conspiracy theories are all essentially the same thing. They're all attempts to explain things that for the average person are unexplainable. Right? I mean, if you're watching or listening to me right now, there are electrons flowing from you know, my home to a server in New York that are going back to our studio in Portland, that are then going to a satellite uplink in Denver, that are then going up to a satellite and then are coming down to a local radio station near you, or going over to Dish or Direct and coming down to you as TV on Free Speech TV. That actually has to bounce twice off Denver because Free Speech TV all this happens in a split second. We don't understand how this works, but we trust science, right? We trust that the gas gauge on our car is telling us the truth. We trust that the medication our doctor prescribes for us isn't going to kill us. Trust is essential for a society to work. Otherwise, things don't work, right? Trust is also essential for religions, which is why the pedophile priests and the Jerry Falwell Jr. and Jim Jones, you know, why these are such huge betrayals. Because we have to feel safe and that we can trust our institutions, even religious institutions that are based on something that's not objectively seeable. It's, you know, faith. And trust is essential to politics. And what's been going on for 40 years now, since Reagan took over the Republican Party, is that trust that the GOP built during the Eisenhower years has been used by politicians like Donald Trump and George Herbert Walker Bush and Ronald Reagan and George W. Bush. These four Republican presidents have consistently lied to us about a whole collection of things, from Iran-Contra to the first Gulf War. Oh, they're throwing babies out of incubators, right? It turns out that was the princess of Kuwait. It's a lying through her teeth to Congress. I mean, it's just like These Republican presidents have consistently betrayed our trust. That's not to say Democrats haven't lied occasionally, but their lies just pale in comparison. And so here we are. The average, just like you don't understand how it is that your computer screen lights up, we don't have the ability, or climate change, the average person doesn't look outside and go, oh, look at that, the climate's changing. I mean, the weather's weird, but, So we have to trust. We have to trust our scientists. Trust is like this core thing. And the Republican Party has been betraying our trust. They've been betraying our trust when it comes to everything from religion to science to politics. And similarly, the average person has no way of knowing if there's such a thing as voter fraud. Dead people voting twice, people who aren't citizens voting. Average person has no way of knowing if that's true. Science has looked at this. Several scientific organizations have looked at over 1 billion votes in the last 20 years and determined that, maybe 20 or 30 times a year in the entire country, somebody who's not eligible to vote will vote, or somebody will try to vote twice. But basically, it's inconsequential. It's meaningless. But the Republicans have been pushing this for 40 years in order to use it as an excuse to knock mostly black people off the voting rolls, to disenfranchise people, to make it harder for people to vote. And look what's happened. So when you consider everything that's going on, and Donald Trump now with his "I've been stabbed in the back" routine, which is, right out of Adolf Hitler's playbook. Hitler's tough guys were busting up Munich beer halls in the 1920s. As a result of that, Hitler went to prison, where he wrote Mein Kampf, and he made a huge comeback. God forbid that's what's coming up right now. But if we want to clean this up, we need to impose severe consequences on these Republican traitors. Bill Pascrell, the Democratic congressman from New Jersey, is absolutely right. Nancy Pelosi should refuse to seat the members of Congress, the Republican members of Congress who signed this seditious document saying that Trump should be seated as president regardless of the outcome of the election. And the bar associations should strip them of their law licenses, and the media should ignore their bleats, and the ongoing Republican voter suppression campaigns, including the new one challenging signatures, needs to be dismantled state by state. Corporations need to be broken up. We need to undo Citizens United. And meanwhile, America needs to start working for Americans. And this is the critical piece of the whole thing. I'll pick this up on the other side of the break and share with you my thoughts on what we need to do going forward to restore trust. Because without trust, you can't have a functioning government.